record. Hi there. So we're here today for the next interview in the series for dog owners that will help them discover the secrets of dog experts that will transform their connection and create the best friend they've always wanted. I have Grisha Stewart here today. Thank you so much for coming. She's a dog trainer and an author and an international speaker and has a fantastic online dog school and more books. So thank you so much for coming and helping us today to talk about helping people with their dogs and connecting and living together and having great lives.
Oh, my pleasure, Jodie. Thanks for having this. And I love that this is oriented more at the family dog and the people who are working with their own dogs, and want to do my best to help out. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. Um, what did you were if we want to start from somewhere, then I can think of talking about how dogs want to learn. And
Okay.
I
Yeah.
noticed that you've mentioned in your past here that you found the dogs and the owners were easier, better, more fun to teach than students were in school.
Yeah. I used to be a mathematician and used to teach people how to do abstract algebra and calculus and all those fun
Scary,
things. And yeah, and
scary words.
and I got into it because I loved the puzzle aspect and the challenges and the critical thinking that were in mathematics. As I was teaching community college, I ended up also getting a dog and falling in love with dogs and volunteering at the shelter and doing those things. And I found that then my human students in that arena were definitely much more excited about learning than my mathematics students who were taking a required class. So it's really nice to teach people who want to learn, that's for sure, and who find it immediately useful and don't have to say, why do we have to learn this? But we all, of course, always want to put the why in there, right? So if I'm teaching a dog to do, touch their nose to my hand, then I need to explain to clients, why is that even useful? And it's definitely one of my most favorite skills is targeting.
And so is that something that you usually suggest teaching? I love it and I agree. I do. It's fantastic. Is
Yeah,
that something right
I
away?
right away, it's really great for people to see how smart their dog is, that they can pick up on this idea of like, wait, I just do this and you give me a treat. Like, okay, I could do that. And so seeing those wheels turn in the dog's head, and then it's so useful because you can use it for getting dogs up and down off the couch, which is a lot of times that's where people get bitten by their dog because they're trying to get their dog off the couch or the bed. Or if you're just trying to get really good photos, right? You can maneuver the dog using targeting. You can call them away from something using that. So you just say touch and they come running in to touch your hand, but the rest of the body comes with it. So it's just really useful.
It is it's awesome. Yeah. Even like for going for walks, like a distraction too, right? Like training.
Yeah,
I've encouraged
absolutely.
people that. And yeah, no, definitely. And then I don't know, just because I was talking to a trick trainer, that's a fun one that can be built on easily, right?
Right, absolutely. And you can, and then when I teach tricks, I always teach tricks with a specific purpose in mind, which is that those are then, well, first of all, they're fun to just show off with the dog, but mostly that they're in the dog's benefit, like to the dog's benefit in their best interest. So, for example, chin targeting, where they put their chin in your hand, can be used to then look into their ears or do a vet exam or brush their teeth or any other kind of self, care for the animal that you need to do. And the more comfortable they are doing that, that's their way of saying, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and do this thing. So they're aware of it. It's not like a big shock or surprise to them. And so the dog's less stressed. And so, but it's also just a cool trick, right? So I like to do tricks that are useful.
And then they help with the vet and all sorts of
Right.
places, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm writing this down and it's a fabulous connection to realize how much it can make a difference in the life of the dog.
Yeah.
Just, and the time, it doesn't really take long
No, it
to
doesn't.
teach.
And yeah, and it's it's building relationship. It's seeing that, wait, what I say to the dog is communicated. They understood me, but also vice versa. So I know something that a lot of regular family dog people don't know about is this concept of consent both ways. So doing what I call a more please signal. Also, they can call it a start button behavior and some other things. But for the more please signal, the dog then does a behavior like a chin target or a nose target. And then as long as they're in that position, they're saying, yeah, go ahead and do the things that you were going to do. But if they move out of that position, then you stop brushing or whatever it might be. So they chin target maybe the first time you're training it, you know, first you make sure the target is nice and strong, but later, you know, you move the brush a little bit. And if they hold still, you give a treat. If they move, then you stop. And then they're like, and then you go back and you give more treats. So that's their way of saying, wait, I don't feel comfortable with what's happening, or yes, I do feel comfortable, go ahead. And so it's a
Yeah.
nice, easy way to get that communication going. I mean, imagine at the dentist if you had no way whatsoever to say, stop drilling, this is painful, right? So
Oh
that
God.
two-way communication is really important.
Yes. Ow. That
Yeah,
hurt.
I mean,
It's
right? I actually went to the dentist with my friend Chirag Patel, who's also a dog trainer, in Germany. We were teaching a seminar or I was teaching a seminar. He was there to assist for a BAT instructor course for aggression, and he had a tooth that needed drilling in Germany. He doesn't speak German, but I do, and so we went to the dentist together. And I was then that bridge between the two of them, and that's kind of like what we are at the vet as well, is to bridge and say, you know, is the animal here really giving consent for this procedure? And it might take a little more time on the outset, but over the lifespan of a dog, it saves a lot of time and it saves bites.
yeah. No, I love that. I love the way you're explaining it too. I know that fear of the vets and dealing with dogs at the vets is a huge issue for a lot of people right now. And I'm sure for the vet, and the technicians and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Just putting that little bit of time and effort and you can really make a difference for the dog, especially when something happens and you have to go to the vet.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I put together, I have like 50 classes on my website, but one of them is about cooperative care. And that's specifically then about this idea of that two-way communication.
That's awesome. Yes, people, need to realize how much it can benefit, their dog to put that little bit of time in of giving them that, even just simply teaching touch, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So how are you finding people switching to online? Since I'm on that type, because I
Yeah,
want people to
absolutely.
be learning at home now. They can't go to class. And
Right, right. And so I've been teaching online for about 5 years, and I started a new version of my school this year. And the new version actually predated COVID. So I was in Spain with my website designer coming up with the new system as the news came on that COVID was a thing.
oh,
And so I had already decided to stop traveling around the world and teach online before COVID. And so that timing worked out really well. Although if I had done it maybe 6 months prior, it would have been nice because I would have been like in place for it. But
yeah,
so I find there, I mean, it doesn't suit everyone's personality to just have the discipline to be at a computer and do it online, because our motivators are different, right? And so that if we have an online school, we need to make sure that we're addressing all the motivators that a student has. A lot of times people are going to class to socialize. And so we need a socialization aspect, we need a learning aspect, we need it to be simple enough that people can actually do it, and we need the clarity of that. A lot of dog trainers are really used to kind of manipulating the person's body into position of how to do the training. And of course, we can't do that online. And so I think there's a learning curve for the trainers of how do we explain it well enough, right? But I love actually being able to have a pre-made video of here's how I teach this skill, and then we can go over it. We can go over it in slow motion or whatever way that really helps the client, rather than just kind of the current, the one pace that we always have to do it in real life, which is kind of normal time. Can't
oh,
do
and
slow motion.
it's I believe, like, and it's very doable. I have learned tons online over the years, with my
Right?
dogs, and
Yeah, me
it's a lot
too.
of
Yeah,
fun. It's
yeah,
different now for people, but that's okay. I mean, it's doable, and dogs are still,
yeah.
as
And
long as
dog
you're
trainers have been
interacting
learning
with them.
online for a long time.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just it's very exciting, and I'm hoping to get more people doing it now, right? Like, this is the time, this is the
Absolutely.
opportunity. The other big thing is separation anxiety, right?
Mhm.
That's
Right. You
coming
don't
up
have
right
to
now
go
at times.
anywhere. Yeah,
But
right. It's a much bigger problem. Yeah, nowadays.
they should
Sorry, go
be
ahead.
they should know they should be practicing and starting now, right? Like doing,
Of course, yes, that's a big one. So when right now a lot of people are not separate from their dogs very often, and so their dogs are creating this idea of this is how the world is supposed to be, which, truth be told, it probably is. That their family isn't
right,
supposed to
yeah,
just leave for 10 hours. But so they're in terms of going back to work, then the dogs will need this sort of transition experience to help them know that this is normal, that their people go away, especially if you got the puppy during the pandemic. Then it's going to be a completely new experience for them that, oh my God, where's my family all day? Are they dead? Like, what happened? And so, doing some gradual leaving for 5 minutes, leaving for 1 minute, and it may even need to be less than that, right? If your dog has proper full-blown separation anxiety, it needs to be something as small as like touching the keys and sitting back down. And I can really only say
yeah.
enough to be dangerous right now, right? If you have separation anxiety, find a trainer, work with them, or take a class in it, but because this isn't really sufficient. But the idea is that it's slow and steady. If you were to put a heart monitor on your dog, that the heart rate would stay steady, or maybe like just at like 1 beat per minute elevated, but not, it's not a big deal. Like, you want the training to be boring all the way through, boring or happy.
Boring or
But
happy?
not
I think our reception's a little funny there.
cool.
I was kind of worried about that
Our
today.
reception just got boring or happy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit
Cool
funny
deal.
today. Yeah, well, and so it takes time, and it's something that I'm sure hoping people are going to think about now. Getting help
Yeah.
with making a plan. They just have to make a plan and get some help, and the dog is always, it's doable.
Right. And it's actually for dogs who already had separation anxiety, this is such a good opportunity because you don't have to leave for long periods of time. The times that you leave can actually be based on the dog. So yeah, this
It's,
in a
it's
way it's a good thing rather than yeah,
well, I'm
rather than
hoping
seeing it
people are
as
going
like,
to
oh
work
no,
for
I
that.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, what else? There's so much, for dogs. So you work with a lot of behavior issues,
I
right?
do.
So
Right.
what would be, how about I ask you, what's would be the one that you see the most?
I would say aggression, fear, frustration. Those are my biggies. So dogs who bark and lunge and growl at people or other dogs. That's my bread and butter. That's
Do
what
you,
I focus on. And the flip side of that, which is in socialization with younger dogs to prevent that. But
yeah.
that's definitely where my focus is.
So do you see a lot of well, where I live, we in Manitoba here in Canada, we have a lot of rescues, right? There's lots of dogs, bringing in dogs from up north, and that is a very common issue that I see, and it's like the teen years usually, or before, if it's not dealt with
Mm-hmm.
sooner. And yeah, it's definitely something that takes time, and you need help to work with.
Right.
Um,
And I could even you could probably simplify the description and just say that we do trauma care for dogs, right?
trauma.
So right, dogs that have either been traumatized by lack of experience or a negative experience, but teaching the dogs who've had PTSD essentially, like, here's how you can cope with the world and become more confident and brave again. That's what we do, or that's what I do, and I'm sure that's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
yeah.
no, well, I have 3 foster fails, and the last one was taken to uh he was dropped. My house was the drop off point for the rescue, because I was involved
Mhm.
in rescue, and so he got dropped on my driveway, and I didn't even know he didn't know he was coming that day, and he had been taken to the vet to be euthanized for biting. And
Wow.
he stayed. He's little, he fit in with my group pretty quick, he attached to me, no problem. And he is the most loving dog, right? So somebody loved him, right? Somebody
Right.
loved him. I always think of when I was a kid and we had dogs that we had to give away, right? Like, it's very sad as a child to go through that. And so I think of that with him. And I think he was
Mhm.
just extremely misunderstood, right? When there is such a one, I can do anything with. He's never bit me. He did have some issues and things that we've worked through. It took time, not perfect,
Built
especially
trust.
because we're not socializing him like would be ideal with people, right? Like right
Mhm.
now. I don't even want to go anywhere, right? I don't even want to walk down the street.
Uh-huh.
So there's
Yep.
that little
Yeah,
bit.
the way this is sort of the perfect time for dogs with trauma issues because everybody's staying away from each other. So they're like all socially distancing, which is what the dogs with trauma wanted in the first place. So,
Yeah, yeah. So so another what really got me going in this is that somebody had come back to me after I had spent some time. I would love to see if you could offer something that would help me when with getting people to commit and believe it's going to work. Because this
mm,
happens to me sometimes, and it just happened again recently where somebody came back after we had done a lot of work. They're it's obviously way too much to put into a small story, but either way, the result was the dog bit her pretty bad.
mm,
And they didn't, it's just like, I just don't think that they understood the seriousness of being consistent, right? Like,
mm, right,
and putting the time in with the dog that he needs, because so many people just seem to think just going for a walk is good enough, and that's just not,
right,
right? Like
right.
many dogs need more than just a walk. In fact, I now encourage them to go for a hike as they walk, right? Like take them over things and over bed, like make it way more fun than just going for a walk, right? But I don't,
Right.
I feel like I'm missing something in getting people to connect, to commit and to do it.
Mhm. I think that's a much bigger societal problem. It's not just about dog training. But
Yeah.
yeah, is the piece, right? Is so we are looking for um well, first of all, there's two pieces to that. Let me just back that up a little bit. One thing
Sorry.
is that no, I started in the wrong part of the story. So I'm thinking that one of the major reasons that people have trouble with that is that there's a storyline in our society, part of our cultural fog, that dogs who show aggression are mean or bad dogs or dominant, right? There's this myth that there's
Labels.
something wrong with the dog versus there's something wrong with the environment that is too much for the dog to handle. And so if we can create the right environment for a dog, we don't see the aggression, we don't see the frustration because their needs are met, right? And that might mean that temporarily they have a very small world and that over time that world can be extended into more and more stimuli that they can handle. But that at their baseline that they need to have a very small world. So that's one piece.
Yeah.
I also think that um, it's sort of related to that. I think that people also have needs, right? And so when the dogs show aggression, that triggers our own trauma responses or what like we're projecting on the dog all kinds of emotion, right? And I think that we treat dogs very similarly to how we treat our inner child. And so if our emotional response to our inner child is just to be like stop having emotion, like cram down, like if our family story was we're not supposed to feel, like we're supposed to just keep things under the rug, then when dogs show aggression we're like, oh my god, you're not, something's wrong with you, and so then they want to rehome, or we learn to rehabilitate, and then I think that actually feeds back and we start to work with our own trauma and our own grief and our own process. And so it's so healing to work through a dog that has PTSD that it's absolutely worth it. And so one piece then in terms of getting people to stick with it is to say like this dog needs a safe place to be. Can you be that shelter for the dog? Can you create a situation that's safe enough for this dog to trust and to feel safe? And to sort of like bring out the parental side of them versus the like authoritarian side, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely. Yes.
So anyway, and on the flip side, not every situation is can they do that, right? They may have children, they may have some other situation where their priorities are such that the answer is no, I can't provide a safe place for this dog, and I'm not willing. It would be nice if we knew that in the beginning. And so part of that is then assessing if we have a dog to put in a home like that is how serious of a commitment are you willing to make? Are you able to set up your house so that your children and your dog never come in contact? And of course, if you have a dog that bites, you probably wouldn't even put it in a home with children. But let's say it's, grandchildren
There.
or something.
Yeah.
Right. Or like suddenly they have children that they didn't know they were going to have, right? Because they got a new boyfriend or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, and I think, things that's the downside of being in rescue, is that it doesn't always work out. And that's where there's so much burnout, right? And so being committed
Yeah.
to the solution, right? Being committed to like finding every dog a home, or as many dogs as you can a home, but also having the um, sort of like spiritually, without the attachment to the outcome, that like I can still be a whole content human being even if everything I do doesn't always work. And that, you know, that's a lot of
As a
there's
dog
a lot.
trainer, that's hard.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
rescue, and yeah, it is very
Yeah.
difficult. But it's true, you know, like the helping people to understand what they're communicating, uh, um, and getting that to work for them with their dog is definitely a big part of several things, right? Especially to me, once a bite has happened, now the person's scared,
Right,
right?
absolutely. And so
So
they're
there's now
defensive.
there's a
Of
new
course they
wall.
are, because they're actually threatened. Right. Yeah. So
And like you said, just
that's a
working through
biggie.
that, like, you know,
And
getting past that stuff.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is, this is to sort of take it outside of the dog training realm a little bit, but because of relationship with dog is very similar to you know, relationship with child or other types of relationship. There's a book that's for partnering relationships called Transformation Through Intimacy, that's about authenticity and vulnerability, and using every sort of negative experience as grist for the mill to learn about ourselves. And so that philosophy, I think, would also help people. And so
Yeah.
I, I definitely will sort of throw in marital tips for people, because I know it's going to help their dog as well. So Transformation Through Intimacy is one of my favorite books of all time. So I'll throw that out
That
there.
sounds awesome. No, and it's true. I mean, I just know that the more I understand and try and understand my dogs, and always be aware of myself because I know they're super sensitive. You see it, you can see it if people look, right. But
Mhm.
the relationships just get better. Like the
Right.
time, yeah,
Yeah. And knowing, of course, that a dog is a dog. So their level of cognition is going to be different from ours. Like we're projecting all kinds of stuff on them that they're not necessarily projecting back on us. So knowing ourselves helps us really know like what part is mine and what part is the dog's, right? So for example, if you have a dog who's peeing on the floor, it's like, so the first response might be anger, right? Because you would love them to be considerate of your things and your house, and like I have a need for cleanliness, right? The dog doesn't know about these needs. The dog just knows that they have this need to pee, right? And that problem solved, right? They found something absorbent and they went on it.
yeah,
So and so yeah, anyway, so parsing apart, like, you know, it's also just a dog. Like it's a dog with a spirit and a set of needs and all these things. And it's like its intention is probably not what we think it is. If you're ever thinking like, oh, this dog did this to make me mad, right? Probably not true. So also almost not true with humans, but definitely not true with dogs. So
yeah, yeah,
anyway,
it's you're
sorry. I like to sort of tie in a lot of
no,
different
it's
concepts.
it's extremely interesting. I love it. I do. I find a communication. We talked lots about, um well, about even just like using a paw, like, right, like when a dog does that, it's a communication, right?
Right,
You know,
exactly.
like they are trying to reach out and they are trying to communicate. And that's, well, I was talking to Larry Kay and we were, and the first thing you teach a dog is shake a paw. And like you said, with the touch, right? And right away they learn it's a connection and they'll start looking at you, right?
Right,
And there's so much to build just from that little beginning,
right.
right? And many
Yeah,
dogs don't know that, right? They'll be looking everywhere, never at you, because
yeah,
they're, like you said, they're in their worlds doing dog
right.
things.
Exactly. And we communicate best to them by having really clear, consistent communication. And so, for example, if, you know, one day the dog paws me, I yell at him, and one day I pay attention, and one day I give a treat, and the next day I look in my phone and I didn't even realize he was there, then that signal is meaningless to him. It becomes noise. And so it's sort of like, if we want to dial in communication, then being really consistent about, if the dog does this, I do this, so that the conversation is clear to them.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that we've probably got a lot of good tips here to help people out. I hope so, And then the other thing I know, like that some people struggle with, is that they can do it. I had somebody recently say that to me, that she was out of it. She had sent me a video of her with her dog, or we were watching or something, and she said something about she's not a good trainer. I said, "You're doing it, right? Like it's not even that hard to do, and your dog doesn't care as long as you're happy and enjoying and having fun with them. You don't have to be doing some magical tricks yourself, right?"
Right. Yeah. And I think just consistency and having a good time, that pretty much goes a long way in dog training. So, and if there's ever a miscommunication or things aren't working out the way that you want, I recommend just taking a video and seeing, did I do something else that maybe communicated to the dog something different than what I was hoping to communicate? So that's one piece. But yeah, especially if you're working with an online trainer who can then, coach you back and forth, you can absolutely do this. The main thing I would sort of consider is, as ideas come of, oh, maybe I should try this, always question, will this help or harm? Is this helpful or harmful to my dog's sense of safety and to my relationship with them? And if it feels like it would build trust, then you're probably on the right path. If it feels like it would make your dog nervous about you in any way, then you're probably not on the right path. And you can really not do very much damage if you keep that in mind. Right. So traditional training with like corrections and things like that, for aggression, for example, there's a 25% chance you can make it much worse by trying to be dominant over the dog. There's a study at UPenn about that. So, but that's not the case with positive reinforcement training. So it's a pretty safe technique and it's very effective. And so looking for ways to reinforce whatever we like and try to prevent reinforcement for stuff we don't like works out great.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. That's awesome, eh? Well, hoping
Yeah.
lots of people are gonna keep up this stuff. I've really found that I don't know if I mentioned to you that I was a nurse for 24 years, and then I got into dogs, and I really feel like I got involved at such a great time because the training methods are, I found out that there's a few different ways that people think about positive, but to me, it's all positive, and it's all good for the dog, and I think it's a wonderful time. Like for dogs,
Mhm.
we just have to get it out there and get people believing what we already know, right?
Right. Well, and seeing videos of people who have done it already. So looking at, Kiko Pup channel for that Emily Laurelham has, for example, like seeing all the how effective it can be to do this. There's no need to sort of go back to that old school way of training. And I find that whenever I might, kind of in my early days, I might have been tempted to say, oh, wait, what about this? Can I, it might be faster if I just like get in there and tell them no, right? And it's sort of like organic gardening, right? You can poison things and make them go away, but then that affects your food differently. With dog training, you
Yeah,
can go in and say, don't do this, but then now you have a dog whose needs are not met. So you don't necessarily, like, you still don't have the problem solved. You have it sort of quieted down temporarily. But that can feel very good to the human to be like, I just did something. And so, always that it's for me, it was always lack of information that made me start wanting to think about punishment. But the
yeah,
moment I sort of took that off the table of like, I don't punish with force, then that creativity of, well, what can I do then? How can I make it clear to the dog, this is what I want and how to motivate the dog to do it? So really thinking from that need-based perspective helped.
yes, yes, and the videoing helps too. I know one thing I recently learned just like a month or two ago. I've had that dog for a long time already, and I did not know that he does not like clapping. And
Mm.
when I get excited and stuff, and one of my videos, I must have turned and clapped or something, and I saw him, and I went, "Oh my God, he doesn't like clapping." Videos
Good
can
job.
really help. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
That's
was-
so great. Yeah, that awareness, I've had so many things I've learned from watching myself or watching a client video and seeing like, oh, this is what they do, right before they start barking and lunging, their spine gets straight and pointed at what they're about to bark at. So let's go ahead and interrupt when the spine is straight instead of when the dog gets tall and when they, start barking and lunging or anything else. Just interrupt at the earlier stages. So just don't let them get any closer if their spine is straight, for example.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping, I'm encouraging people to do it and get more involved in it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you've been successful at it. And I think that there's like gazillion, I don't know how many billions of dogs or millions of dogs are out there that need help. So
Mhm.
hopefully we're going to get
Yeah.
more going the right way with this.
Yeah. Well, and I think so any of the people who are watching this, right, you have different ideas now, and then that will sort of influence your neighbors because they'll see you training in a different way. And so this is how we change the world to be a more positive, safe, friendly place is by how we treat all of the beings in it. And so this is part of not just dog training change, but global change. So
Yes. Yeah, well said. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we okay. I have a feeling we could easily talk for a long time. I love it. I love learning
it's fun. Yeah, this is great. I really appreciate you setting this up.
all right. Thanks a lot. Hang on, I'll just stop this game.